Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. I hope you can hear me. I know there's some background noise over here. We'll try our best. Okay, so we are on Memhei Amud Beis 45b4 V'chein Le'inyan Tumah. So remember, the Mishnah spoke about an issue of chametz when you have a trough, basically a big bowl, and it had pieces of chametz the size of a kazayas, and we said that's going to be a problem. Less than a kazayas, not a problem. We spoke about, is it above, is it beyond, is it below, is it above? Fine. But then the Mishnah continued and said V'chein Le'inyan Tumah. Okay, there's a quote. The Mishnah says, we're at the 45b4, second column, second paragraph. So too regarding Tumah, im makbid lav chotzitz. If a person objects to the chametz being there, then it is a chatzitza. If the dough is something that bothers the person, it's a chatzitza. V'mrotz b'kiyumo. If the person wants it to be there, haruk hareva, then it's like the trough itself. Okay, ask the Gemara, mi dami. What kind of comparison are you making? Hasan b'shiur atayim milsa. When it comes to chametz, the issue is what's the size? Is it bigger than a kazayis or smaller than a kazayis? That's the real issue, right? Hacha b'kpeit atayim milsa. When it comes to chatzitza, when it comes to making an interposition blocking between the water and the item, what we really care about is, does a person care about it? And it's not a matter of size. So what is the Mishnah saying when it says it started introducing this chametz issue, which is a size issue? It says, and so too regarding tumah. The two have nothing to do with one another. So Amar Yehuda, we're going to have a bunch of different answers. Each one's going to be rejected until we finally come to one. Amar Yehuda, maybe say the way to read the Mishnah is to say, regarding Tumah, it's not this way. When it comes to Tumah, it doesn't matter about the size. Amar Abaye says, how can you say that? The Mishnah said, so too with Tumah. Don't say, so too Tumah is different. It's not what it says. It says, so too Tumah is the same. So Elamar Abaye therefore says, this is what the Mishnah possibly means. This is what it means. We're now at 46a1, Mem Vav Amud Aleph, in Seir of Tumah Pesach, regarding combining Tumah for Tumah on Pesach. Whereas during the rest of the year there is a distinction. Okay, Heichidami, what does this mean? We're going to explain what this means. I'll explain as we go along. Okay, in order for something to be able to contract Tumah, it has to have an egg's volume of food. Okay, in order for food is something which is able to contract and pass on Tumah, it has to have an egg's volume of food. Okay, so let's say you have this bowl. The bowl is not food, but it has the dough over there. The dough is food. So, but it has less than an egg, and a person has food which is less than an egg's volume. So let's say a person has a kazayas. A kazayas is an olive. A beitza is an egg. So you need an egg for tumah. A person has half an egg, a kazayas. Okay, they have an olive's worth of food. V'nagu b'hai batzak, and it touches the dough. B'pesach d'yisur chashav. On Pesach, since we treat the dough as significant, since chametz, when there's a kazayas of chametz, it's aser, therefore it's significant, mitzdaref, therefore the chametz, the dough that's there, it is seen as significant, and therefore it's so significant that we treat it as if it combines to the other food. B'sharei Moshe Hashanah, whereas during the rest of the year, the big peidaton milsia, where there's no chametz issue, therefore the chametz doesn't have its own independent significance, therefore it matters only about, does the person care about it? If the person objects for it being there, and we say, therefore it's not considered like it's part of the bowl, therefore if it's not part of the bowl, a person objects about it being there, then it combines to other food. However, in Rotz B'Kiyuma, the person wants it there because it's plugging up the hole, then Haruk HaReva, then it's like the trough itself, right, with me? In other words, the way Abai is learning it is as follows. He's saying like this, during the year, in order for something to be mekabel to me, you need to have a beitza's worth, an egg's worth of chametz. So let's say you have an egg's worth, of food. Okay, in order for something to receive tumah and be able to pass on tumah, it has to be an egg's worth of food. So let's say you don't have an egg in one food item, which is an egg, but you have a little bit of food and it touches this bowl. This bowl has a kazayas, let's say, of chametz there, of dough, right? The dough that's being used to plug. So during the rest of the year, we say, well, let's assess. If the person really wants the dough there, then we don't treat it as dough, we treat it as part of the bowl, and therefore it doesn't combine to the food. If the person doesn't want it to be there, then it does combine, and therefore they have the measurement, the beitza measurement, because the two things combine, and therefore it's a problem. On Pesach, we say, we don't care if you care about it being there or not. If it's chametz, if it's going to be problematic from a chametz perspective, then it's significant enough that we treat it as its own entity, and therefore it's mitzdarif, it combines together with the rest of the food. Maslav Rava asked the question on this, Miktani mitzdarif. The Mishnah, again, so now you've moved the needle a little bit in terms of interpretation of the Mishnah, but still, you're not reading the Mishnah properly. The Mishnah doesn't say anything about mitzdarif, whether it combines, but chotzitz katani. The Mishnah only speaks about interpositions. Chatzitzas. Rava says like this, regarding bring tara to the trough. That's what we're talking about. Heichidami, what does this mean? The trough became tameh. The trough, which has dough attached to it, became tameh. The person wants to immerse it in the mikvah. On Pesach, when the dough's prohibition is significant because there's dough there, right? Then chotzitz lo salka letvila. Then the dough is significant enough, and it's going to act as a interposition of chatzitza, and tefillah is not going to work. However, during the rest of the year, because there's no chametz issue, then we ask, does the person want to hear or not want to hear? So if a person objects to it being there, then it's a problem. vacuum, a person wants it there as a plug, then haru kabri if it's part of the trough, and you could just go through the tefillah process. Maskor Papa asks, wait a second, then the Mishnah still doesn't read, because then you are saying, the Mishnah is saying, and so too when it comes to purifying a dish, we're not talking about purifying. The Mishnah said, the Mishnah said so too regarding impurity, not purity. Say, Papa, here's the final answer. Regarding causing tumah to descend to the trough. Okay, what's the case? You go into naga sheretz by batzik. It's a case where the sheretz touch the dough that's stuck to the trough. Okay, you have a bowl, and you have dough plugging it up, and you have a sheretz, something which is tummy touching that dough. So the question is, are we going to see the dough as part of the bowl or as an independent entity? So bit Pesach, Yisrei Chashav. On Pesach, where it's significant because there's a prohibition, chotzetz, then it acts as a chatzitza. V'lo nachla tuma. And tuma doesn't descend from the sheretz to the rest of the bowl. B'sharei Moshe Shana, however, the rest of the year, the B'kei Tali Mosa, it's all dependent on a person's objection to the way they care about it. In makbil of chotzetz, the person doesn't want it to be there because, they want to go, they just don't want this dough over here, it's bothering them, and they're going to eventually get rid of it and break it through and fix the bowl in another way. Then it's considered an interposition. It's not considered part of the bowl, and it blocks from the sheretz. So the sheretz touches that dough. If the person doesn't want it to be there, then the dough is a separate entity, and the sheretz then is touched only the dough and not the bowl. In rotz b'kumo, however, if you want the dough there because you want it to plug the bowl, then haru kareva, it's just like the bowl, and therefore if the sheretz touches the dough, then it makes the whole thing tamei. Okay, new Mishnah, batzik acherish. We have dough that is quote unquote deaf. What this means is that it's dough which it's not clear if it became chametz. Why it's called deaf, not for today. But the bottom line is that's the case. I mean, if there's a similar dough, a dough that's made at the same time, that it's comparable to it, meaning it was made at the same time and it is chametz, you have two pieces of dough, one and made at the same time. One dough is clearly chametz. The other dough, we're looking at it, it doesn't have all the telltale signs of chametz, meaning it doesn't have the cracks, okay? So here's the answer. We look at the other one, we say, oh, this is chametz, presumably the deaf one is also chametz. Ask the Gemara, Minki Yotzei Mahu. Let's say there's no other dough comparable to it. What is the halacha? So if you don't have another thing to compare it to, you ask yourself, how long was this dough sitting without being worked on? If it's the amount of time it takes to walk from Migdal Nunaya to Tiberia, mil, which is the distance of a meal, then you have to assume that there's chametz. Meaning a meal is, by the way, 18 minutes. That's like you have 18 minutes of your matzah. The name a meal. Okay, why does it just say a meal explicitly? So Hakamash Blan, Shira Demil can Migdal Nunaya Vatveria. To teach you as well that it's a mil distance between Migdal Nunaya and Tiberia. Now it's interesting. We are makbid that our matzah is made within 18 minutes. The truth is that the issue of 18 minutes is 18 minutes without being touched, without being beaten. But the way we make our matzah, we're beating it constantly. We're touching it constantly, so it's not actually rising. So we make our matzah within 18 minutes to be strict, to be careful. But in truth, really, as long as you're beating it, it could go for more than 18 minutes. It's only 18 minutes rising. That's the issue. Rising means I'm not touching it at all. Okay, now we go on a bit of a tangent. Some very important tangents. Tangent about distance. So regarding a person who is hired to knead dough, person regarding davening with in a shul, or really as Rashi says elsewhere in a minyan, or washing your hands before eating bread, you have to go 4 miles. Okay, what that means is, let's say a person's traveling, and they know that within a 4-mile distance there's going to be water they can wash their hands with Tefillas Yadayim. Then they have to wait until they get to the 4-mile distance. According to many poskim, it doesn't mean 4 miles of distance, it means 4 miles of time. It used to take them 18 minutes to walk a mile, so that's 72 minutes. So if you're driving down the thruway and you're hungry and you want to have a sandwich and there's no water with you, and you say, wait, there's an exit within 60 minutes, okay, you gotta wait because it's within 72 minutes. The same is true with a minyan. If you're traveling and there's no minyan where you are right now, but within 72 minutes there's a minyan, you keep on traveling. And the same is true if a person is hired to go ahead and knead dough, and the problem is that the utensils that are given to the person are tamei, are impure. So how far does the person have to go in order to purify it? The implication is you have to go 4 miles as well. Okay, Amar Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, Ivu Amra. Rav Nachman says this is all said in the name of Ivu, not Rav Abahu. Okay, you can understand why those got mixed up. Not Rav Abahu, but rather Ivu. The Arba Amar Bani actually said a fourth one. The Chadaminayu Ibud. And the fourth one is the working of leather. What does that mean? It's not a ton of the Mishnah. The Chulun She'ibdan, person worked skin. Let's say a person has skin. You worked it into leather, or they were trodden upon, they're stepped upon for the time that it takes to work leather, then it's tar, meaning it's not susceptible to tumah. So meaning you have skin of an animal. Skin of an animal is something which is susceptible to tumah. It's just like an animal. It's like flesh. You eat skin, right? If a person eats chicken skin or whatever, or could eat chicken skin. But if a person made it into leather by beating it, by stepping over it, then it becomes a no longer food, and therefore it's no longer susceptible to tumah. Chutz mei or ha'adam, human skin is an exception. Why? It's a discussion elsewhere in the Gemara. The Gemara asks, how long does it take to work the leather? Amar Rabbi Ivu, Amar Rabbi Yanai, today he looked Arba Milin. Can you still hear me? I hope so. It takes time to walk a distance of 4 miles. This is another case. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina. We'll just wait a second.
Requested to keep away from the edge of the platform behind the yellow line. Thank you.
Lo shalom el lefanav. This is only, all these 4 miles we spoke about is only when they're ahead of you. And the way the poskim understand that means if you're traveling, let's say I'm going on a trip and I'm traveling in that direction anyways, and I'm just like, I'm hungry now, we say just wait 72 minutes, up to 72 minutes. If, by the way, if within 72 minutes you're still not going to get water, let's say you're on a plane or something, there's no water, let's say, even though planes should have water, then you're allowed to hold the bread with something interposing, like a piece of cloth, like your shirt or whatever it is. Hold the bread like this. That's the only time it applies. You can't just do it like, I want to do it. No. If there's really no water, you can't access the water that within 72 minutes, that's the only time you said it. But he says like this, Lo shalom b'fanav. This is only if you're traveling and it's a distance in front of you, and you would just say, wait a little while. To go out of your way, I feel a mil in a choser, you don't have to go back even a mile. And what that means, meaning 18-minute distance. And what that means is, let's say a person's not traveling and a person's not going in a direction. So this halacha means, according to many, not all, but according to many, that let's say when it comes to going to Minyan, when it comes to washing the sun, you're not going anywhere. I'm sitting in my house. There's no water in my house. The next place that has water is 18 minutes away. There's no Minyan in my area. The next place that have a Minyan is 18 minutes away, etc. You don't have to do so because you're not traveling. The whole halacha was, if you're traveling, you should go wait up to 72 minutes. But if you're sitting put, then you don't even have to go a mil. Amar Rav Acha, we learn from there, a mil din a choser. You have to go a full 18 minutes. But if it's 17 minutes, you would have to go. So again, if you're traveling, you have to wait up to the 72 minutes. If you're not traveling, then within 18 minutes, you have to go. So let's say there's a Minyan in an area, you're like, I'm too lazy. Go to the Minyan. There are exceptions for Minyan, many important exceptions. But the bottom line is if it's within 18-minute drive, then you should do it. Until there's no water in your area, no water in your house, and you have water 2 blocks away, you go walk there, no problem. 18 minutes. If you're traveling, then you have to wait up to the 72 minutes. Have a wonderful day. I will hopefully record the other 2 Amudim which I'm missing from Yom Tov, God willing, sometime today if I have the time. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Take care.